everyone, ready for something really fascinating? Today we're going deep on UFOs, specifically what happened in Manhattan back in 2019.
Oh yeah, those sightings were wild.
They really were. Picture this. July 17th, a normal summer night in New York City, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly, it's anything but normal. Unexplained lights start appearing in the sky. We're talking eyewitness accounts, official reports from the FAA, even some of those, whispers about cover-ups.
And those Manhattan sightings, those weren't just some local thing. This went international, fast. It sparked a huge wave of interest in UAPs.
UATs, right, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Exactly. And what makes this case so interesting is it wasn't just quick glimpses of lights. This gets into some really big questions about what we know or think we know about our world.
The eyewitness accounts, even just reading those, it's amazing how different they are. Some people saw this huge single craft just hanging there. And others are describing all these smaller lights zipping around like crazy. There's one account that stuck with me. The lights changed colors, going from bright white to this deep pulsing red.
And the thing is, a lot of these reports, they weren't vague at all. You had pilots, air traffic controllers, people who were trained to observe, report accurately. This wasn't, I think I saw something. These were detailed observations. It wasn't just the lights themselves. People talk about feeling uneasy, like something just wasn't right.
So not mass hysteria, more like a lot of credible people seeing something they couldn't explain.
Right, exactly. It makes you wonder what was going through the minds of the authorities as these reports started coming in. What do they make of all this?
That's a good question. So did the FAA, with their radar and everything, did they figure out what these lights were?
Well, that's where it gets a bit murky. They did an investigation, but they couldn't give a clear explanation. The radar data, which you'd think would be key, didn't show anything that definitely matched the sightings. Radar sends out those radio waves, and if there's a solid object, it bounces back.
Yeah.
But nothing conclusive here.
Interesting. So it wasn't just people calling in worried. The National UFO Reporting Center, they were flooded with reports. Even the NYPD got involved.
Yeah, the NYPD did their own investigation, interviewed witnesses, looked at any security footage they could find, but just like the FAA, no definitive answers.
Huh. And that's often how these things go, isn't it? The lack of a clear explanation from official sources that just fuels speculation and all the conspiracy theories.
Exactly. People start filling in the blanks themselves, and that's when you get those whispers about cover-ups and secret technology.
Speaking of how people react, the media had a field day with this. This wasn't just a New York story. This went global.
Oh, absolutely. The Manhattan UFOs, they were everywhere.
Yeah.
Newspapers, TV news,
Yeah.
all over social media. It shows how fascinated we are by the unknown. This stuff captures our imagination, you know? Makes us think, what if there really is something out there we don't understand?
It really does. And it was interesting. It wasn't just the lights themselves. It was how people reacted. You had people scared, people totally skeptical, and then, of course, the folks who were excited thinking aliens.
The Manhattan UFOs, they were like a Rorschach test, It forced people to confront their own beliefs about the universe, about other life being out there, maybe even their own fears about what we don't know.
Okay, so we've got strange lights, baffled authorities, and the public is both fascinated and a bit freaked out. But what about the government? Did they ever give any real answers about what might have happened?
Well, that's where things get a little more complicated.
Yeah.
A bunch of Freedom of Information Act requests or FOIA requests, those were filed.
Yeah.
That's how people try to get information from the government,
Yeah.
legally. But many of these FOIA requests about the Manhattan UFOs, they were either flat out denied or the information that came back was heavily redacted, like big chunks of it blacked out.
Classic government secrecy. That doesn't exactly help calm down the conspiracy theorists, does it?
Nope, not at all. But before we go down that rabbit hole, maybe we should explore some possible explanations. Let's start with the most popular one. Could it have been, aliens?
It's what everyone jumps to, right? Aliens cruising over Manhattan.
Well, it is captivating. And to be fair, some people point to the way the lights moved so erratically and the fact that there's no conventional explanation as evidence for this theory. They say it fits, advanced tech we can't understand.
The alien theory is definitely intriguing, but let's be realistic for a minute. There are other possibilities, right? Ones that might make more sense.
Of course. We can't rule out advanced technology that we just don't know about yet. Maybe it was some top secret military project testing out experimental aircraft, drones with capabilities we can't even imagine. Not as exciting as aliens, but it acknowledges that things are happening in our skies that we might not fully grasp.
Okay, that's a possibility. What about more everyday explanations? Like, could it have been a really elaborate drone show? Or maybe some strange weather phenomenon messing with the light?
Yeah, those are possibilities too. But the thing about the Manhattan UFOs is they're a perfect example of how we try to make sense of the unknown. Do we jump to the most sensational conclusion? Or do we try to think critically, consider all the options? It's a good lesson in evaluating evidence, especially when we're dealing with something as mysterious as UAPs.
It's a good reminder that just because we don't have a definitive answer, it doesn't automatically mean aliens. But it also doesn't mean we should dismiss the possibility entirely.
Exactly. The key is to stay open-minded, but also skeptical. Look at the evidence, and sometimes the most honest answer is, we don't know yet.
The mystery definitely adds to the intrigue. Speaking of intrigue, let's move on to how these events have shaped the conversation around UAPs since then. It's amazing how much things have changed.
Things have really changed, haven't they?
Yeah.
It used to be, talking about UFOs, that was like fringe stuff, taboo, almost.
Yeah, it was for the conspiracy theorists,
Yeah.
right? But now you've got scientists, government officials, even NASA. They're all saying, hey, maybe these UAPs are real. Maybe there's something to this.
And I think the Manhattan sightings, they were a big part of that shift. It made people realize maybe there really are things happening up there that we just don't understand. Stuff that breaks the rules of physics, of technology as we know it.
Okay, so speaking of challenging what we think we know, you mentioned some really out there theories that popped up after these sightings. What are some of those, the mind-bending ones?
Well, one that always gets people going is interdimensional travel.
Yeah.
Some folks believe that those lights over Manhattan, they weren't alien spacecraft in the way we normally think of them.
Okay, so not spaceships.
Right? Not spaceships from another planet. They think it was objects from another dimension, somehow crossing over into our reality.
Interdimensional beings just popping into New York City for a visit. Wow. But how could something like that even work?
That's where it gets really speculative. Some physicists have proposed that there are other dimensions, beyond our own. Like, imagine parallel universes existing right alongside ours, each one with its own laws of physics.
Parallel universes, huh?
Yeah, and according to some theories, there could be points where these dimensions intersect, like wormholes, passages between them.
So these lights, maybe they were interdimensional tourists taking a wrong turn.
It's a fun thought, even if there's no scientific proof. Right?
Yeah.
But the point is, events like this, they make us think bigger. They push us beyond what we consider normal reality.
Makes you realize just how much we don't know.
Exactly. And there's another theory that's really interesting about the role of consciousness in these phenomena. Some researchers, they believe that UAPs might not be physical objects at all.
Wait, what? If they're not physical objects, what are they?
They think they could be projections of consciousness or some kind of psychic phenomenon.
Hold on, are we talking psychic powers now? That's a whole other level.
It's definitely out there, but it's an interesting thought. The idea is that maybe consciousness is more powerful than we think, more interconnected. Some say that those UAP sightings, maybe it was collective psychic energy manifesting as lights or objects.
So instead of aliens or beings from another dimension, it was our own thoughts, our emotions creating those lights. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that one.
It is a wild idea, and it goes against what we know about science right now.
Yeah.
But think about it. The Manhattan sightings, they make us question everything. They push us to explore the edges of what's possible, maybe even consider that there are forces at work in the universe that we're only just beginning to grasp.
It's like all of our hopes and fears, they're reflected in these theories. The idea of aliens, it taps into that desire for connection, the hope that we're not alone in the universe.
Exactly. And then the fear that these UAPs could be dangerous, something we can't control. That speaks to our anxieties about the unknown. What if it's something we can't handle?
It's almost like these sightings, they're a mirror reflecting our fascination with the cosmos, but also our fears about what's out there.
That's a great point. And it shows why it's so important to approach this topic with balance. Be curious, but think critically too. Embrace the mystery, but don't jump to conclusions without evidence. We have to evaluate the information carefully and not let our own biases cloud our judgment.
Balance is key, that's for sure. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about the more practical concerns? Things like aviation safety, national security. If these UAPs are real, whatever they are, them being in our airspace could be dangerous, right?
You're absolutely right. Alien, interdimensional, whatever they are, the fact that they're flying around up there raises some serious questions. We need to be able to identify them, track them, to keep our aircraft safe, and to figure out if they pose any threat.
So we need better radar, more training for pilots, new ways of dealing with these encounters. Like, our current systems weren't built for this.
You hit the nail on the head. Our systems are mostly designed to track regular aircraft. We need new tech, new strategies to monitor and analyze these UAPs. Better sensors, more powerful data analysis, and pilots need to know how to document these encounters, report them accurately. It's a whole new world.
And it's not just the US, this is happening all over the world, which means we need countries working together, right? A global approach to studying these things.
Absolutely. We need to be sharing data, coordinating research, coming together to try to understand this. Think about it. If we pooled all our resources, all our knowledge, what could we learn?
It's like we're entering a new age of exploration, not just exploring space, but exploring what reality, even IS. And the Manhattan UFO sightings, they were a big part of that shift.
It really is an exciting time. We're seeing these huge changes in how we understand the universe and our place in it. Who knows what we'll discover next?
Before we move on, I want to go back to something you said earlier about UAPs being projections of consciousness. I know it's a wild idea, but it makes you think, what if the answers aren't out there in space? What if they're inside us? What if understanding this stuff is about exploring our own consciousness, not just searching the stars?
That's a profound thought. What if our consciousness is connected to the world around us in ways we can't even imagine yet? What if our thoughts, our emotions, can actually manifest in the physical world? It's something philosophers have been debating for ages.
It really is mind-blowing, the idea that we're not separate from the universe, but actually part of it, connected to it in this deep way. That maybe we can influence it with our consciousness. We could do a whole deep dive just on that. But for now, let's get back to the Manhattan UFOs and what they've left behind.
Agreed, it's a fascinating idea worth exploring more. But for now, let's bring it back to the Manhattan sightings and their legacy. What have we learned from all of this?
We've gone through the events, the reactions, all the theories. It's been quite a journey. I'm really curious to hear your final thoughts on this case.
It's amazing looking back at everything we've discussed about the Manhattan UFO sightings, all the different angles. It's really a lot to take in.
Yeah, from those first reports, people calling in saying, what is that in the sky? To trying to understand the official investigations, then all the theories. Wow.
It really makes you think, whether you believe in aliens or not, those Manhattan sightings, they changed something, you know?
Hmm.
They made people curious about the unknown again.
For sure. It's like this spark of wonder, looking up at the sky and thinking, what else is out there?
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one last question, something to really ponder as you keep exploring this topic.
Ooh, I like a good question. Lay it on me.
All right, here it is. Do you think what happened in Manhattan, do you think that makes it more or less likely that in our lifetime we'll actually discover extraterrestrial life? Wow, that's a big question. And I bet people have strong opinions on both sides. You could say these sightings, they're like a hint, right? Like we're not alone, there are other beings out there, and maybe they're even visiting us. It could be like those are breadcrumbs leading us to this huge discovery, proof that life exists beyond Earth.
It would change everything, wouldn't it, to finally know we're not alone?
Absolutely. But then you could also argue that because those sightings are still unexplained, because we don't have that solid proof, maybe it means we're still way far off from making contact with aliens. Like the more we learn about space, the more we realize how much we don't know.
It's almost a little scary how much is out there that we haven't even begun to understand.
Exactly. It puts things in perspective. Maybe the search for aliens, it's not just about looking for spaceships. Maybe it's about expanding our own minds, changing how we think about reality itself. Maybe then we'll be ready to see what's truly out there, even if it's right in front of us.
Like one of those optical illusions where you have to look at it a certain way to see the hidden picture.
Perfect analogy. We might need to completely shift our thinking to unlock the mysteries of UAPs, and maybe even find those other life forms out there.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the Manhattan UFO sightings. From those initial eyewitness calls to exploring the mind-boggling possibilities, it's been a fantastic journey.
Totally agree. It's been a pleasure exploring all this with you.
Remember, everyone, keep asking questions, keep that curiosity alive, and never stop exploring the universe, both the one out there and the one within each of us.
Beautifully said. Who knows what incredible discoveries await us in the future? Until next time, keep looking up and keep wondering.